Hi everybody, my name is Chloe Marasco, and within this video I'm going to be talking about my SIOP lesson plan that has a learning strategy focus of Think Alouds. Before I begin talking about my strategy, I'm first going to talk about my lesson plan and just give a brief overview. So for this lesson plan, it is focused on a first grade science classroom. And the content area of the lesson plan is plant and animal survival. And going along with plant and animal survival, the students will also be working with comparing and contrasting the plant and animal survival needs and how they acquire these needs. A big focus on the comparing and contrasting is with water and air and how plants and animals differ from receiving their water and air. This lesson plan has it goes in order of first starting with a motivational strategy, which I've chosen two fun videos. They have very fun tempo to them. And I'm going to start the class off with showing these. Now, these videos, the first one goes over the needs of a plant, and the second goes over the needs of an animal. And the purpose of these videos is to just get the students up, get them moving around, dancing to a fun beat, and the lyrics of the video are on the screen, so they're able to sing along, which will help them recall some of the information for later. Next, the class is going to go into a short review, and the review is going to be on living versus non-living things. This will be a known topic for the students. They will already have prior knowledge on this from a different lesson plan within the unit. And the majority that they're reviewing is that living things require survival needs. They need air, they need water, where a non-living thing like a pencil isn't going to need those things. So after we go into the review, we're going to start into vocabulary. And now this vocabulary is basic plant, animal, shelter, food, water, things that the vocabulary they need to know to be efficient in their learning skills, to be able to talk and use the efficient, appropriate vocabulary. After we talk about the vocabulary, we go into the book. And this is where the Think Aloud is actually focused on. Now, the book is named What Do Living Things Need by Elizabeth Austin. And the reason I chose this book is because it's very simple to read, it's very simple to retain. It's a fun read for the students, but the illustrations in the book actually prompt more discussion than even the text in the book. So looking at the illustrations kind of start up other things to think about, other things to discuss. So the prompts I choose within the Think Alouds are actually focused a lot on the illustrations to get the students thinking. After the book, we go into kind of a visual graphic just to get our ideas onto paper, and I use a Venn diagram. The Venn diagram was really good for this, especially with the comparing and contrasting. One side is for plants, one side is for animals, and these are for their survival needs, and in the middle is what both acquire, which is water and air. After this, after we learn more, we go into a worksheet. The first worksheet we go into is focused completely on the survival of plants and animals and their survival that they both share together. So for the animals, they focus more on light and space, where on the animals, they're going to focus more on food and shelter. After this, they go into a worksheet on comparing plants and animals and how they acquire their different needs of both water and air. And they do this by visually representing how both receive water and air, and then writing a short description to just describe their drawings. So after that, they actually finish a small think aloud where they answer the essential question of the lesson plan, which is what do living things like plants and animals depend on, and how can I figure this out? And they actually fulfill this question, this essential question, by filling out their own Venn diagram at the end of the classroom as sort of an exit slip. So now to talk a little bit more about the Think Alouds. The reason I chose Think Alouds was I really thought it would benefit this lesson plan because it forms a purposeful and powerful educational tool for the students to use to extend their comprehension skills along with building their critical thinking skills and applying context and content from different subjects that they're also in. So I thought this would be really nice because it is a science lesson plan and we're adding in that reading aspect and we're adding in these other aspects to kind of help them to get them thinking. And the book also that I chose really highlights this. And as I talked before, the video really highlights the illustrations and gives you different ideas to think about. Another thing, a reason I chose Think Alouds is I was reading a lot of Vygotsky, which is an educational theorist, and he talks a lot about private speech and how private speech is really important because it helps us solve problems and it helps us clarify our ideas. And I felt like that was a great tool for the students to be learning more about and to help them within their educational studies to help them continue and clarify their ideas and use those critical thinking skills no matter what subject they are in. So when I actually start the Think Aloud process within the classroom, I actually wanted to demonstrate critical thinking for the students to pick up on, model it for them, kind of an I do, they do, and then we do together. So what I started off by doing is I asked the students to kind of draw attention to the name of the book, which is What Do Living Things Need? And I brought their attention to the text features to ask them, what is the purpose of this text? And how did the title help you know that? So to try to get their minds moving of, okay, I know this book is possibly about what do living things needs, and I know that because that's what's in the title. And bringing that inner speech out and making it oral, making it them say it verbally. So to keep demonstrating that critical thinking skills, I ask the students questions aloud and I'm going to answer them too. So this is a time where I want the students to fully listen to what I'm saying. So I start off with asking, what do I know about this topic and how do I know this? Well, I know this book is about living things because it is in the title, and we are learning about plants and animals within the science unit. What do I think I will learn about this topic? Why do I think this? The title talks about living things and how they need things. Therefore, I believe I will learn more about the specific survival needs of both plants and animals. And this is when I'm going to kind of start the think aloud. Now that they've seen how I ask myself questions and I answer them out loud to try to get their minds going and understand this is what they're about to do. So when I start the think aloud, I'm going to split the class into 4 groups, and then this is the group that they're going to be working on their worksheet with. And while they're working on this worksheet, they're still going to be listening to me, but they are going to be seated within their groups. Now, these groups are going to be filled with 4 students, and the students, I want to broadcast a wide variety of learning skills, but each group is going to showcase one higher level thinking student and one ELL student. And this is just kind of to provide peer help and peer feedback, which sometimes an educator cannot give to a student. Sometimes they need that peer one-on-one to help things click. So I'm going to separate the students into these groups, and then I'm going to begin reading the book. Now, throughout the reading of the book, I'm going to pause, and during those pauses is when they're going to have their group discussions, and they're going to be following a worksheet that I made to help guide them through this work. So I'm now going to screen share that worksheet so I can read the book aloud and show you how to do this. So this is the worksheet that the students will get at the beginning of the read aloud strategy, learning strategy. So now on this worksheet, you'll give them time to fill out their name, their date, and their group members. Now writing the group members is important because you want to see who is all working to fill out this worksheet. Now in the directions, I put that you will discuss each prompt with your group, which the educator will be reading out loud also. But also write down the different ideals on the lines. Now, I don't want them to be writing strict sentences and worrying about that. It is more worrying about getting their ideas down on paper, thinking about what they wrote down. So, I will begin to read the book. We start off with page 2. Living things need light. After this first page, I would prompt the students to think about what the author means when she says, living things need light. What kind of light does the author talking about? Is he talking about sun, or is she talking about electricity? How does light affect animals? How does life affect plants? So I want to get the students to start thinking. The first page, straight off the bat, get them thinking, get them talking to their partners in their class, and really think about what they're thinking and saying it out loud, just having that conversation. A lot of articles that I read on Think Alouds pretty much say that Think Alouds are just talking exactly what you're thinking, pretty much putting your words out, like eavesdropping on somebody else's mind, and that's what I want them to do. How I talked about the illustrations, the illustration showcases the sun, so I kind of want them to say, well, the author put a picture of the sun, so I'm pretty sure they're talking about sun. So then you'll continue reading. Living things need food. Living things need water. And then we're going to go back into our discussions with our groups. And this is what I'm going to draw focus to those illustrations again. On one page is focused a raccoon, where the other is a water lily. Make sure your students see these. And you want to ask your students to start thinking about, what does the author mean when they say they need water? Because the illustrations show us a raccoon and a water lily, but how do these plants and animals, how do they receive water differently? How is the water lily drinking water, but the raccoon is also drinking water? The water lily doesn't have a mouth. Get them thinking about these things. Then you continue reading after you've given them a couple of minutes to talk to their groups and write down their ideas. Living things need air. Living things need space. Then you can go back to the worksheet. The author states that living things need space. How does the illustration on the pages show us how different living things need space? Why do we need space? So in this illustration, it shows a girl running through grass. So in this illustration, not only shows grass needing the space to grow, but also a girl needing room to run. So these illustrations are also going to get the students thinking, well, yeah, the grass needs room to grow. The animals need room to roam. We need space to move around, and get them thinking, why do we need space? Then you want to continue reading. Living things need homes. Living things need protection. Living things need other living things. And you're going to go back to your worksheet and talk about how the author states that living things need other living things. And the illustration showcases a bee and a flower. Now talk to your students, talk to them how a bee goes to a flower to eat. They eat the nectar, they eat the things that the flower provides. But then that bee goes around and it collects the pollen and it pollinates so the more flowers can grow. So the flower is not only depending on the bee for more production, but the bee is depending on the animal for nutrition. So how do living things depend on each other? How else do living things do this? Get them thinking. Ask them how we depend on plants and animals, right? We not only eat plants and animals, but people, especially in the olden days, would not only use the animal to eat, but also use the animal to wear fur coats. It goes into things like that. So you really want to get the student thinking. Whenever they are in these think alouds, make sure all students are participating within this conversation. And to maintain this, to walk around and really talk to the students, make sure you're checking up on the ELL students walking around and making sure they're understanding things. All right, thank you guys for listening.